Everyone. Voice check. Yep. Morning, everyone. Um, this is a talk about bug hunting in Postgres. The idea there is to encourage Postgres developers and kind of application developers to be able to look for bugs in their own code. And that's the brief there, but let me get to the meat in a minute. My name is Robins Tharakan. I work as a database engineer with Amazon Web Services and work closely with the RDS Postgres team. This talk is about learnings while bug hunting in Postgres and some extensions that you may have heard of. I'll try to highlight some broad basics around how to start looking for those and how to create a good bug report. To me, that's the second part and the more important part where a lot of bugs get lost with in conversation. And there are many tools to do that. I'll be focusing on just two of them for short of time, but that's the main goal here. My past has been with Postgres for the last 10-15 years. Earlier, I did some community development with PGadmin, later on with PSQL, and then minor features with Postgres. But most of the recent work has been about raising bugs, finding bugs, reporting them, helping developers fix them, and it's been an extremely interesting experience there. Okay, so the basic talk agenda is about how or what should be a good expectation to set for yourself and for the people that you're interacting with when you're reporting bugs. What is fuzzing or fuzz testing, and frankly, why should you be interested in all of that? And then look at two tools, SQLsmith and SQLreduce, in trying to help you find bugs. And why would I say help in finding bugs? I mean, if the tools can do their job, what are we here in conversation about? And then do a demo and see how does that work? If you start using the tool, how does that look on the screen? And then see if we can talk about components of a bug report. The interaction with the community is a little interesting. I mean, a lot of people, me included, have had some very interesting reactions to the way they've interacted with community. You drop in a long email and sometimes no one comes back. And your first reaction is, I mean, what just happened? And you say ping, and then no one comes back again. A lot of the interactions have some expectations set in. A lot of those conversations require effort from the person dropping the email as well as from the person reading the email. And a lot of that gets missed. What you can put, what are the basic expectations from the community, and reporting a bug involves some of that. And it's good to know if you're aware of some of that aspect. There's a very good talk by Claire last year in New York, and she summarized a large part of that. And I think that's a very good go-to for trying to see how would you interact with the community. What are the basics? How does the core community work? What are the mailing lists? What are the good ideas of which mailing list to go for what? And so forth. So that's one good go-to that I would recommend you looking at. There are bug reporting guidelines, which is like the Bible, and then there's a bug reporting wiki, which is like an orthogonal way of looking at what are the checklists, right? I mean, a public documentation is huge and large. You don't end up reading it. But a wiki is like, did you do this? Did you do this? And that's the wiki part. And I think that's a good checklist to go for when you're looking at reporting a bug. Besides the interaction, the next part is what's already there. If you look at these names on the left, they're basically machines that are already running right now. This is called the build farm, where there are machines running right now. And those machines have different kinds of, and I mean, you could go on with it, but they have different operating systems, they have different compilers, compiler flags, they could be ARM architecture, they could be Intel. They're trying out all combinations. So it's already there. They test this and they run this like every few minutes or every few hours, immediately report the results back. And that's a good way for the developers to know whether the existing code base is working fine, which is good. So this is already there. This is not what we're going to talk about. The part that this is interesting in the data, avoidable. Try to see if you can remove context from that SQL to just be something that anyone can reproduce. A good example to that will be in your testing database, create a new database and run it. It'll fail because now they'll have no table to join with. So all of that checks can be done by itself. Find an SQL which is a little more easy for developers to reproduce, and use that as the sample to report. It's something that would really help taking that conversation further. I have the setup that I use. I have a mechanism where knowing this, having done that so many times, the setup runs SQL like forever. And every Monday morning or every Wednesday, I go take a look at the reports that are generated. And this is a sample report that it generates, for me at least. And the way it does is that every crash is reviewed into a text file. There is some basics around the crash, but the interesting part that is addition to the previous slides are the backtrace. A backtrace is like when the database crashed, that specific moment, which functions were calling each other. And that trace allows the developers to look at the fact that, oh, that's the path that it took to execute. And on a function level, whatever, 40? Okay, on a function level, I think 35 or so. I can show that here. Give me one sec. Okay, I can't find it. But basically, the text file contains traces of the backtrace that makes this super interesting. So if you look at yeah, I shouldn't have done that because it has 3,000 crash reports already on that folder. And all of these are crash, many of these are repeats. So that's the other problem with how you start to use it as a framework. You go for a vacation, come back, and you think that the system's doing the job by itself. Like I said, you need to put blinders and make it a little more efficient. You'll get 5,000 crashes because the same bug was reported again and again and again and again. You don't want really that as well. But the idea that the text file that you could use to simplify your work makes the parsing of a crash a lot more easier if you can do that. But basically, the SQL that is usable by a developer to recreate the crash is first and most important. Additionally, if you can provide a backtrace, that's great as well. And with that backtrace, it has high chances of getting fixed right then. There's one more part that I really like, and I think it really is helpful for the developers, is that we now have a clear case of this SQL crashes the database. Fantastic. When did it start? I mean, what caused it? Has it been like this forever? I mean, I don't know. So what I did was I created another script which goes back every commit and tries to see, does it crash on this commit? Yeah, okay, and keep going back. And then in this case, at number 36, you see that something changed on that commit. For a developer, that is really like reducing a lot of work. Because now when I say, in this commit, something bombed, and now this SQL crashes, it's very easy to fix. And that's a good way to help them with where to start looking for something like this, right? So that's another way to make this conversation shorter by providing all the details right up front, and then saying, okay, how can this be easier for them? Yeah, okay. So let me just show you some conversations there. So remember the bug ID that I was talking about earlier? This is that bug ID that I reported back in, I think, early Feb. And And it essentially was the same idea that there is this commit, there is a SQL crash that happens, this is my SQL, and I looked at it and it looks like this commit is the one to blame, or where it surfaced. This is the backtrace. I don't know more than that, but I hope this is helpful. A lot of just copy paste of what the text file gave me. And the immediate answer to that is, yep, that looks interesting, and it's fixed. 7 hours it was done, right? It has to be relevant. It has to be a clear example where it starts to become interesting. Now, these are all conversations of similar kind. They're all separate commits which were done. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad. Yep, sorry. So these are all separate commits that were similar conversations where all of these will, if you go down, there is a discussion link here. All of these are cases where a bug was reported. If it was detailed enough, like, yeah, this is the issue. This is the reason why that was failing, and now we fixed it. And all of these are exactly same conversations. They become interesting because you've provided enough data for them to take you out of the context, your database out of the context, your production tables and values out of the context. Now they've got a scenario that they can reproduce and say, yep, I think I can fix that. And all of these are exactly the same conversations. That's the core. And remember, I said in the beginning, I was not talking about just Postgres, but I was talking about the extensions too. So if you scroll down further, these are similar conversations, but now we're talking about extensions. This is the ORA FCE extension. There was a bug found exactly the same way like I did for the Postgres code. And I mentioned that this is what's wrong. When I give a negative number, like I was saying an example, right? You've created a function, it works perfectly. The first two answers are correct. But when I provide a negative number, it just gets stuck. Someone looked at it, fixed it, done. Thank you. Same here. PG repack. This is a conversation. I'd like to highlight this out. MySQL FDW. I think Suraj is here in this conference. He looked at this bug report, which said, this is the issue. I expect this. Whatever some details that I provided, a reproduction. And he said, yep, that looks interesting. He fixed it, said, could you take a look? I said, okay, yeah, it looks fine to me, and we're done with it. A lot of these conversations can lead to very quick fixes if they complete detailed bug reports. RDKit is an extension, PostGIS, I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of already. PG Similarity is an extension, PL Profiler. All of these are examples of trying to say that this exact same issue can happen with your application logic as well. There's no reason why that can't be true. And remember, just marking a function strict only protects it from null values. It doesn't protect from -1, stupid answers, stupid questions. So it's good to run your application code in a test environment, please never try this on production because it's not meant to be, but try that with your application logic. The same benefits we're seeing in the engine core and the extensions can be had by your application logic as well, right? So that's that, and one sec. So that's extensions. Yeah, that's basically the idea there. And what else? Probably the last, okay, I'm kind of on time, but what else is there? These are two tools that we talked about. There are other tools. Remember, SQLsmith is about one SQL, but a giant SQL. SQL Lancer is a whole other tool. It's by someone else, but it's about running multiple SQLs and seeing what happens. And it's not just about crashes. So SQL Lancer is a little different. It's about finding logical bugs. It can clearly identify scenarios where it says, this answer is 9, it should have been 10. And when you look at the bug report, it's 1,000 lines of SQL, but you don't really care. If you, again, like I tried here, you point that file to the database, and you can have a cross-check visually as to, yeah, that's wrong, that 9 is wrong, it should have been 10. What caused that is a part of that triaging. And this SQL reduce is another SQL reduce. Sadly, it's the same name. This tries to reduce it like this. A 1,000 SQL file, 500, 200, maybe 4. And then that 4 SQL will be a good report for the developers. So this SQL reduce is different from the others. The first reduce was about compacting it in a single SQL. This is about multiple SQLs. What if I remove this SQL? Do I still see the problem? What if I remove this? And it keeps on doing this on an iterative basis. And then it says, okay, this is the smallest reproduction of those 1,000 line SQL that you gave me. And now this also does the same side effect. So that's also there. I'm not going there, but that's a very interesting topic for another time as well. And that's it. So I'm from Delhi, so the ID is guy from Delhi. But barring that, I think this post somewhat is there on the blog site as well. But yeah, that's pretty much what I had in mind. If there are any questions? Everyone's hungry. So am I. Okay, that looks like that's it. Nice. Good, thank you, everyone.